The Monster is a 2016 American film written and directed by Bryan Bertino and stars Zoe Kazan and Ella Ballentine. The plot follows a mother and daughter with a rocky relationship being hunted down by an unknown creature after breaking down on an old rural road. So after watching The Strangers for the first time in a long time the other day, it made me really want to see more of Bryan Bertino's work. I'd never seen any of it. It also made me remember that I owned one of his other films and had never watched it, but now is the perfect time, I guess. Now, going into this, I was definitely wanting a creature feature. But as much as I am a fan, this is an A24 film after all. So, I wasn't really sure what I would be getting after all, what I would be getting. So essentially what you do get here is like an old school 80s style creature feature, but with an emotional story, between a child and her mom, kind of, dare I say, shoehorned in. And when I say shoehorned, I don't mean like they weren't originally supposed to be there or anything like that, because they were. But I say that because, in my opinion, this doesn't work super well, for me at least. Like a lot of A24 films, this is a pretty minimalist story, not unlike Bertino's 2008 debut, The Strangers. It's got a fairly unimportant, it's got a few fairly unimportant side characters, but it revolves mostly, around Lizzie and her mom, Kathy, played by Ella Ballentine and Zoe Kazan. And the plot essentially is Kathy driving Lizzie so she can go stay with her dad. Since her mom and her dad are divorced or whatever, broke up. And she's made it clear that she wants to live with him permanently at some point. So family drama aside, very simple and straightforward, which at this point seems, to me it seems to be Bertino's kind of writing style. Just going off the two films of his that I've seen so far. He even said in an interview that the victims in his stories are always going to be the focal point, basically, which makes sense to me, again, so far, seeing his first two films. The villains in The Strangers, have no identity. They're completely mysterious. And this film, pretty much follows suit with a monster with no identity. Do monsters need identities? I don't know. So periodically throughout the film, you get these flashbacks between Lizzie and Kathy, showing just how terrible of a mom Kathy is. And as a parent, these scenes were pretty hard to watch. Two things I struggle with in movies is, animals being killed. You guys probably do that. But it's also children being abused. And what makes these scenes, hard to watch is that they are played pretty realistically. I've seen parents like this. And Kathy is the epitome of a terrible parent. She's an addict, which I get, that's, I'm not putting her down for that, but she's also abusive, and she's also selfish, and I absolutely hated her, and by design, really. You're not supposed to like her in the beginning. And of course she's going to have, a redemption arc, but for me at least, by the time that happens, it was too little too late. After everything that we see and learn about her, there was almost no way that she was going to win me over. But you might be different when you watch this. And there were two flashback scenes that really stuck with me. One was a scene where Lizzie finds Kathy passed out on the bathroom floor, and she lays down with her. It's pretty devastating. But the one that really hit me hard was a scene where Lizzie is getting ready for a school play that is really important to her, and she doesn't want Kathy to go. Again, as a parent, this scene just kind of destroyed me. Because I don't know if other parents feel that way, but my biggest fear has always been somehow losing the respect of my child. So as they're trying to reach their destination, via this rural road that they're traveling on, they hit a wolf in a series of events that don't really make a ton of sense to me. You beginning with the massive amounts of damage to their car just from hitting a wolf that didn't really look that big. But this is where the film shifts towards creature feature for the first time. So okay, let's see how that goes, because I do love a good monster, but in my opinion, not real great. Because this, to me, this is Sci-Fi Channel level stuff. Only with a veteran cinematographer, of course, who has worked with Oz Perkins on several films. I do give the crew credit for a non-CGI monster. It looks completely practical, at least to me. but I also don't care that much for the monster. Like, it looks kind of like a cross between Venom, like the Marvel guy, and a Xenomorph maybe, but not as cool as that sounds, because that sounds kind of awesome. Again, with the B-movie comparison, because that's kind of what this monster looks like to me. They try and hide it, at least early on. They do, they make it cool, they make it mysterious. They try and hide it as well as they can, and as much as they can, but you do see it quite a bit at certain points. So it's not like one of those movies where you don't see the monster. But speaking of hiding it, that was pretty easy to do, I'm sure, in a film this goddamn dark. Like, there's a scene that's basically like, the horror scene, but it's so dark that I actually had to guess what happened, which sucks because it looked like it might have been pretty cool. So, I mean, I really do like what Bryan Bertino was going for here. Like combining a story about child abuse and a creature feature type thing. That said, again, it doesn't really work for me, unfortunately. Don't get me wrong, on paper it sounds great. The dual meaning thing, how people can become monsters, and actual monsters might exist. Zoe Kazan and Ella Ballentine give pretty good performances, really. But I do think they have to shoulder a load that's just like, it's maybe too much for them to carry, considering that they're both in every single scene. So I'm giving the monster a 5.5 out of 10. Bryan Bertino, this is kind of a swing and a miss for him, but he's got a unique style, and I appreciate that. But yeah, this was kind of a letdown for me. I'll still be checking out his other films, though. I have heard good things about some of them. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex.